Kia ora and welcome to Point of View, Episode 8. My name is Tom Augustine. We have a really, really great show coming up for you today. May is a packed month for film and television. We're going to be talking about all the latest new releases. My guest today is Diana Wichtel. She is the very storied, very celebrated writer and critic. She wrote for The Listener, television column for a very, very long time. Her new book, Unreel, is about a life of criticism and turns into a very interesting memoir as well. She's going to be speaking at the Auckland Writers' Festival in May about this book. We were really lucky to sit down with her to have a talk about television, where it's been, where it's going, and criticism in general. So stay tuned. We're joined today by Diana Wichtel. She is the best-selling author and reviewer, a bit of a legendary reviewer here in New Zealand. She wrote for The Listener for a good 20 years, is that correct?
Going on for 36.
36, my goodness. And also has written the very highly acclaimed Driving to Treblinka, her new book, Unreel, A Life in Review, has just come out, or is about to come out.
End of November. It came out, yeah.
It came out, and it is being discussed at the Auckland Writers' Festival on Friday the 16th of May with Finlay MacDonald. Diana, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you very much for having me.
So I'm really, really happy to have another critic here to talk Turkey with, and I also I'm really glad to see that this book is being discussed at the Writers' Festival, because I generally feel like it's an interesting time for criticism, where there is a huge amount of criticism, where there's a huge kind of democratizing of criticism, maybe is a good way to put it, but a lot less value is being put on profession of criticism, and it feels like it's been devalued in the way that we talk about film and television and other kinds of art as well, but particularly film and television. So I'm really glad to see that this book is being discussed and that kind of thing at the Writers' Festival. Is that something that you feel as well in terms of your experience of writing criticism?
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder, well, for a start, I'm absolutely delighted and amazed that it is being discussed.
Yeah.
We're doing the Auckland Writers' wonderful Auckland Writers' Festival. Highly recommended. It's a brilliant experience. And I did do it for Driving to Treblinka, and it was amazing. But scary, but amazing. But, yeah, I agree, because I knew with this book, it might not be for everyone because it's around television, but it is a memoir. It's a memoir, and some of the questions you talk, why would you be a critic? You would ask that question more now than ever, but why would you be a critic? And I think I started thinking right back to my childhood and trying to remember the first time I had a critical thought. And so I wrote about that at the beginning of the book, because, I must have only been 7 or 8, and I was watching Queen for a Day, which was, don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I have not, no.
It was a ghastly kind of game show where they would get on women with hard luck stories, and they would get up and tell their stories, and they would be judged by an applause meter. Can you imagine?
Oh, my goodness.
Wringing the tissues. I remember watching their hands wringing the tissues, and I just thought, there's something not right about this. I was totally addicted to it. And then the winner, who got the most claps, would have a crown, and all this whiteware would go by with prize pointers.
Wow.
What they'd won, this incredible dream of winning everything. And that was my first critical thought. So, yeah, criticism. I've thought a lot about it. I think people do think, why is your opinion? And maybe more now than ever because of the democratization of democratization. I don't entirely go along with that. But, I remember in my reviewing career at a certain point, there were shows like That's Incredible on American TV, where ordinary people's stories were being told, sometimes in a slightly mocking way or slightly freak showish way. But they were. And I remember thinking and probably writing, well, why shouldn't these people have their 15 minutes of fame? Why does TV have to be the preserve of super groomed, newsreaders and people who cut the mustard? Why can it not be anyone? And I talked to Clive James about this once, and he did his show, which really mined kind of lowbrow TV.
Yeah.
And he said in his day, it was, he was thinking the same thing, it's interesting, why shouldn't? And that he never realized what he was part of unleashing as we get down to Celebrity Treasure Island and, all these. But, so, I think at the moment, definitely we're in a reset. And some of that, I think, is not bad.
Yeah.
For instance, I'm really worried about news and current affairs and that we have something in that space that is trustworthy and authoritative. But I remember back in the day, all the newsers sold themselves as authoritative, a place to go, your news. Right. And I never bought that either at the time.
Yeah.
And there's something incredibly ritualized about the way we've consumed these programs over the years, these hyper-groomed people. With their expressions, my fun thing is how their expressions don't quite adjust from something ludicrous to some terrible scene of war. And
that composure. Yeah.
Why are you smiling?
Yeah, totally.
So I think we can use a reset, and I'm interested to see what happens in a worried kind of way. And with criticism, I think, yes, everyone's a critic. They always have been. It's just that they can publish themselves now.
Yes.
And also, I would, in my own defense, I would try and say I've never pretended to be an expert. I'm not an expert in television, in the techniques, and I make a point of that in the book. I still have no idea how it works. I don't know how it gets up there. No idea. I've always been a viewer, and my idea was just that you're a close reading viewer. You're a viewer who watches as hard as they can and tries to figure something out.
Yeah, and your voice, I guess, gets picked up by people who feel the same or just find something of value inside that, right?
Yeah, and the thing I loved the most was that sometimes I get, I still do, from people who say, I've never watched any of those shows you write about, and I'm never going to, but I still enjoy reading. And other people, thank you for doing it so we don't have to, which is not how I felt about it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed watching just about everything, but...
I guess that is high praise in its own sort of sense.
Well, I guess that's my point about criticism. It's not just somebody saying you have to...
Yeah, it's not just a thumbs up, thumbs down.
It's also, it's watching someone think about something, and you may agree or you may not agree. But yeah, it's I think it's just a thing that can stand alone. And if you're Clive James, or, back in my day, I couldn't read his books of collected reviews on the public transport because I'd just be weeping with laughter.
Right.
It can be an entertainment itself. I didn't know half the people he was taking the piss out of.
Yeah.
But
fantastic.
Yeah.
So tell me about the genesis of Unreel then, because you had this quite kind of astonishing book, Driving to Treblinka, which was a really, really big moment in New Zealand. People called it a masterpiece. I believe Steve Brawley has called it a masterpiece. A bunch of other people have also reviewed it very, very fondly. This book is more specifically focused on television, but it's also, as you say, a memoir. What led you to kind of deciding to pick up the pen in this sense again and return to writing a book?
Well, I think I originally just thought maybe an essay or something, or an article, because when Bauer Media shut down, it was quite a shock. We were all sitting at home. It was the very beginning of lockdown, I think, in April 2020.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, how quickly you forget. And we're all sitting at home, and my partner works over there and I work over here, and we were muted, but I almost missed the meeting because a message suddenly arrived at 9 in the morning, we're having a meeting. And so you were muted and couldn't see anyone there except the guy. And he said, the whole thing, gone. There are no more jobs. That's it. You're done.
I remember seeing it from the outside and being like, wow, this is earth-shaking.
Yeah, it really was. It was such a shock. And I remember I never trust mutes, so I leapt up and I'm sort of trying to Chris, my partner, sort of do it with sign language.
Yeah.
But, I'd been there a long time. And for me, the time had come anyhow. I was ready.
Right. Yeah.
But I didn't want to bring the whole magazine industry down with me.
Yeah. Sure.
And there were so many wonderful people, talented people. And yeah, I was gutted in that regard, certainly. But, luckily, the magazine has come back, and I think it's better than it's been for a long, long time. I think it's, I'm picking it up and I'm reading it. And
fantastic.
it's really good. And a lot of people have, gone on to great things in their own different ways. And, but that was the beginning of it, I suppose, the shock of that. And then I think having done Driving to Treblinka, I realized it's just like watching it. Well, it's not just like, but it's like watching a TV show in that I like to look at something and see what I make of it. And I thought, well, why? I suddenly thought, you're doing it. You don't really think about it.
Yeah.
Except when people say, when are they going to let you write about something proper instead of TV?
Yeah, right.
I did write other things about it. But yeah, I think it was just, why have I done this for so long? What was I doing? What brought me here? Why did I stay?
Yeah, right.
Because my kids' generation, they don't stay at a job for 3 decades, do they?
I think some might like to, but...
yeah, it's just not going to happen. So, and also I did think driving to Treblinka, I really I've changed my view of what the past is. A lot of people, and I think here in our country, the Pākehā culture, born of pioneering, people don't like to look back too much. Yeah. They don't like to even look forward too much. They just like to deal with what's happening and in front of them. And for me, having done that book, I just thought, the past is not back there. It's flowing alongside like a river. You can dip into it. And as I found with that book, even with the greatest loss, you can continue to have relationships in a way. Yeah. And talk to those people and learn from those people. So I just thought, I want to be back, sort of going back into the past again and getting into that zone where it's a sort of twilight zone, living between present and past. Yeah. It's actually quite, for me, a place I like to go to. And also I came away that last day, we went in with masks on, socially distanced, with people watching over us as we cleared our desks. Yeah. And I had a big cupboard where I just piled all this stuff. And so I took it all home, and there were boxes of hate mail. Wow. And that I'd kept because I love the hate mail mostly. Yeah, so, totally. And it also made me think, the hate mail, I must say, I had one, why do you intellectuals, I was surprised to be called an intellectual, keep trying to make the rest of us feel stupid? And that did strike me, and I thought, I'll think about that. And,
that's really interesting. I mean, that's kind of, I guess, what I was getting at is this kind of idea that criticism is is the domain of intellectuals, and it's about being like the writer trying to enforce this kind of better than you notion on the reader, which I don't think is necessarily why any critic does this.
No, I mean, I think obviously in the whole realms of criticism, there are some people with a more high-handed stance than others, but I tried not to. I tried to do it through humour and things, but that can have its own problems because they think you're laughing. And I mean, that letter, it was a cry of anguish because I'd said I didn't think the chemistry between Paul Henry and Kay Gregory on Breakfast was very good.
Wow. That really inspired someone to sit down and write.
My friends and I.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So it was a good way of just looking back. And also, I was accused of being a bitch all the time, being a vicious person, pulling the wings off butterflies. I had my backs turned to me in the industry at times when I went to things. And I never minded too much unless I'd made a mistake. Then I was really, I hated to make a mistake if I'd said something that was just wrong. Yeah. But otherwise I took it on the chin. But so I wanted to look at that and say, was I a bitch? And the original title of the book was something Brian Edwards had said about me. We were both columnists in the Listener at the time. Does Diana Wichtel really have to be such a bitch?
I like that title too. I think Unreel is great, but that's a great title too. You could release an alternative version of that title.
So I wanted to ask myself, have I? You look back on your life and you think, what have I been doing? And definitely looking right back, in the beginning, I was reading a lot of English writing. Julie Burchill, Clive James. He was not too mean. But he just took people apart by being just so funny about them. Yeah, right. But Yeah, I did want to think, and I look back and I thought, well, yeah, there were times where I wouldn't do what I did there. And it was often when, instead of just engaging this critical side of my brain, I would get exasperated or annoyed and, write something.
And you want to just pour it out.
Yeah.
I mean, I fully feel that. I mean, going back and looking at some of my old reviews from 2016 or 2015, and I want to kind of crawl out of my skin a little bit. But
Yeah.
I think also it's interesting, I mean, you may not feel this way, but it feels like perhaps there's some element of harshness kind of coming to your way as a woman talking about film from television from an authoritative standpoint. Did you feel like that might have been the case, that there was some sort of gendered kind of element to people's backlash against your writing?
Certainly in the early days, and it was more how people wrote to you.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And, come on, sweetie.
Yeah, totally.
And you were just one of those feminists, or, they accused me of being feminist, and
what an awful accusation.
I'm trying to think what other things I got accused of being. Anti-British, and I love British television.
Even the term bitch, I think, is an interesting one.
There isn't really an equivalent, actually, is there? Not entirely.
No, not hugely. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, I had a lot of anonymous abuse that was just straight out abuse. So yeah, there was an element of that, and I don't know that my male colleagues got as much of that kind of thing.
I mean, I haven't received anything on that level of abuse on my end as a critic. I mean, maybe times have changed, but I don't know that they have, especially in that regard.
No, certainly not online.
No, but I mean, it does feel to me like perhaps I don't know. It does feel like there is some sort of element of that to this day in terms of who is allowed to sort of state their opinion, I suppose.
Yeah, I would say that never changes entirely. Yeah.
Before we move on, I wanted to ask you, obviously you have probably more of a basis in television criticism from British television than American television, but I'm quite interested in your favourite shows of all time. Do you have a list? Do you have
God.
one that you...
Yeah, it's so hard. And the minute I try and think, I suppose it's interesting that I often divide it into, but that's partly because that's what they do online too, American, British.
Yeah.
Like, some lists will include both, but most are weighted one way or the other, aren't they?
Yeah.
And then New Zealand. And I realized that for a lot of years, this is really, really good for us, rather than this is just brilliant overall.
Yes, that is a thing that I think occurs to this day in film and television in New Zealand.
Yeah, and I had to guard against that a bit. Yeah, I mean, obviously for me, it's The Sopranos. I mean, it gets nudged every once in a while by Better Call Saul or by Succession or even Game of Thrones or something like that, because it's of the phenomenon that it is. But for me, that was a great American novel, and it understood so much about America, and we should all watch it again.
Totally agree. I think that's something that we should, religiously return to, because it says so much about the moment that we're in, whatever moment we're in.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Succession, and Better Call Saul, all of them. Breaking Bad. A lot of people love Mad Men. It was never in my very top.
Yeah.
And I go way back to I Love Lucy as a kid, and I loved that show. And I've watched a lot of it in recent times as well, and it kind of holds up, some of it, as absurdist comedy.
Yeah, right. Well, I was reading a review of Unreel. I think it's David Hill, who wrote a very nice review in Kete about
colleague.
Yeah. And he said that you mentioned that Monty Python is a big one for you as well.
The British
Circus.
Yeah, Monty Python's Flying Circus was absolutely, for my generation. Well, for me, it was the Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band moment for TV. For my generation, we didn't watch much TV in those years. I was like fringe hippie-ish existence.
Yeah,
where we lived in a mixed, mixed flatting in those days, and we had. When the parents came around, you had to hide every evidence of either if you were the boys, that there were girls there, or if you were girls.
Yeah.
That was something we all agreed on, I think, and everyone would find a way to watch
Yes.
And for me, even before that, no, British TV was a revelation when I came to New Zealand because there was so much of it. But not only, but also Peter Cook and Dudley Moore. Brilliant.
Yeah, right.
And it's been overshadowed by Monty Python, but I don't think there would be a Monty Python if there weren't would have been if there weren't for them.
Right.
And various other people too. Fawlty Towers, Fleabag. Honestly, just the Detectorists, a bunch of guys standing in a field with metal detectors. Yeah. Brilliant show.
Yeah, fantastic.
It's very hard, and you go back to Kathy Come Home, the kitchen sink dramas of the 60s, about a woman whose life unravels.
Wealth of Riches worth kind of uncovering again.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, a plug for NZ On Screen, that is such a fantastic resource. And we need a lot more of that. Because when I was actually working, in my early days of writing about TV, if you were talking about an American show or an English show, you could find out stuff. But nothing was really, there was nothing. Nothing was kept or written or analysed or just came and went. And it was hard to find out anything. So that's a great resource.
Shout out to New Zealand.
What about what's some of your favorites?
Well, The Sopranos is number one forever. Twin Peaks.
Oh yeah.
And The Return. I do love Mad Men. Friday Night Lights. Love Friday Night Lights. The Leftovers. That's a pretty great one.
Yeah, we watched that. Yes.
Breaking Bad. Always.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one that I want to sit down and actually one day just write out a proper list.
Yes. Yes.
I don't have the full list here. I just know that Sopranos is always going to be at the top.
I had to take part in a New Zealand one for spin-off. Did you see that? They rated, and that was a really interesting experience. And I was surprised how much everyone agreed on some of the basics. I would have put Outrageous in front of Shortland Street, but then Shortland Street is
it has that legacy.
It's still going, and everyone said, and including me, this is crap, it's not going to work.
At
the beginning. And it's one of the few New Zealand shows that, to me, its heyday in the 90s, once it got going, and with John Lee and, his muffin trolley, and it had a whole layer of irony running underneath the story.
Totally.
And we, in those days when you couldn't tape everything, or we didn't, I would not answer phone calls while that was on. And that's high praise to a show, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, have we ever seen the like of must-see television in that sense, New Zealand again? I don't know. Maybe Outrageous Fortune, but...
I think I do rate Outrageous Fortune. I've watched quite a lot of it again. It's confident. That's the thing. And it's humour. It's confident.
And its own brand. Its own thing.
Yeah. And I remember at the beginning, people in West Auckland don't sound like this. And, and that was beside the point.
Yeah, totally.
And wonderful character and wonderful actress. And, After the Party, again, was a terrific series.
100%. So looking at what's coming ahead in May, we've got a few direct streaming movies that people will have their eyes on. There's the return of the Simple Favor franchise, I guess. Another Simple Favor, the sequel to the unexpected hit with Blake Lively and Anna Kendrick from a few years ago. That lands on the 1st of May. We've also got another Fair Street movie. These are kinds of fun, slightly trashy R.L. Stine-based horror flicks. That one's coming to Netflix on the 23rd. We've also got stuff like Bono's Stories of Surrender, which I believe is arriving at Cannes first, which is going to be a documentary about the U2 frontman. There's a whole bunch of television coming to streaming as well. Probably one of the more interesting shows coming up is The Four Seasons. The reason I mention it is because it's coming from Tina Fey's 30 Rock team. It has Steve Carell, Tina Fey, Coleman Domingo, Will Forte, really, really good cast. It looks quite funny from the trailers. Have you seen the trailer for that?
I have. Yeah, it does look quite funny. It's that classic thing, isn't it, of couples that go away together for years.
Yeah.
And there's the thing that they go once each season.
Yeah.
And then one of them breaks up. And,
and then the tension starts to come in.
I was trying to think. I've seen a million things with that kind of setup where the younger person is trying to fit in.
Yeah.
But I think you can't go too far wrong with that cast. Can you?
No, it's almost about watching the cast bounce off each other, and it's kind of like the setup is just, that's what it is, just the setup, and then it's watching them spark off each other. We've also got the return of Nine Perfect Strangers, the second season. Did you watch the first season?
I did. I had read the book because I interviewed the writer, whose name's just gone out of my head now, who's written all those books. Leanne Moriarty. That's right. Yeah, which was really interesting to talk to her. And they're lightweight, and weird, but kind of. This one was very watchable. I mean, Nicole Kidman, who's unavoidable, but this was actually quite good in that role because there is a slight iciness about her sometimes, and so I will be up for the next series.
You'll be watching.
I like that sort of weird.
It's interesting with Nicole Kidman where there's this kind of thread that she's kind of established herself as this kind of maybe like a upper tier kind of mystery thriller television show presence. You've got Big Little Lies, you've got The Undoing, you've got Nine Perfect Strangers. I think there's another one as well.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of this new era for Nicole where she's transitioned mostly, not entirely, from movies to television. It's quite interesting how TV and film seem to have kind of squashed together in a lot of ways. A lot of television is more cinematic than the movies that are coming out. Movies are sometimes released entirely on streaming, as a few of these titles are.
And back in the day, for a really top flight actor, they did not want to go to TV.
No,
that was like some slightly shameful transition.
There was like a stigma around it. Yeah.
And that is not the case. I mean, I imagine. Well, they seem to be lining up to be a lot of good actors.
When do you think that change took place? What was that around that kind of like arrival of Netflix, House of Cards kind of era, or was it earlier than that?
I think so. That may have been the time that it did. And I'm just trying to think if it was as marked in England as it was here.
Perhaps not.
I don't think it was, because I'm thinking of Helen Mirren, and they were doing fantastic TV series, and Cracker, what's his name? Robbie Coltrane.
Coltrane,
I think there was a lot more crossover earlier than there was here.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I think American television has followed suit and has followed the lead of British television a lot. I mean, even the short episode counts of seasons and that kind of thing. Very much a British style that was adopted overseas as well. And so when you're watching television these days, how are you doing that? Are you still sort of traditional up on the television? Do you pop up a laptop? It's
interesting in our household. My partner grew up without TV until he was in his teens, I think. They finally caved and got a TV.
Right.
And I know a lot of people like that. And when he watches TV, he watches TV. He's not doing anything else. He's just watching the TV. And he likes to watch one thing right after another, And I grew up with it. It was just around me.
Yeah.
And like my mum, even in her older years, you go round to her flat and the TV was always on. She just liked it. It was background noise. It was company. And, we'd sit down to chat and I'd say, I would say, could you please turn it Something I wasn't wanting to say. So, but we watch. So, we have to adjust to each other's styles. But, I don't mind watching some of the things he likes with blowing up things and, but I'll often have my phone now, or it would have been a magazine that I was flipping through.
Right.
So I've always double screened in a way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
But we watch. We still watch the news. We do like to watch the news. And lately, as the world has gone more and more insane, we actually like to watch at least the headlines of both the newses.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And we flip around CNN and BBC and all of them, Al Jazeera, all of them.
Yeah.
But we do not a lot of viewing now, just to the TV schedule. A lot of it's on demand, which is good. That's been a big change lately, how much good stuff you can get on demand from the broadcasters and from, of course, Sky. And we've got the new Skybox finally. We caved to the new Skybox.
Yeah, right.
I kept saying, get the new Skybox.
Yeah. It's interesting. I work with teenagers. I teach media a lot of the time outside of this kind of world. And it's interesting how much even these younger generations still watch the news, still sit down for that appointment of viewing.
Yeah. My grandchildren don't, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I was quite surprised when I heard that. Maybe it's just the particular kids that I work with. What are you subscribed to? Like, what services do you value? Are you a Netflix person, Neon?
Yeah, we've got Netflix. We've had Neon, and probably we'll go back to it. Sometimes you go through a period where there isn't so much on one, and we've got Amazon Prime, and we've got Apple.
Yeah.
What else have we got? But it does change. Sometimes
sometimes it lapses. You pick up another one.
Yeah,
that's
right.
Coming
Netflix,
through.
definitely. We watch quite a lot of Netflix.
Yeah.
Just because it's there. And
it's ubiquitous, isn't it?
Yeah.
What have you, do you have anything particularly this year that you've seen that's really stuck out to you as real highlights, whether that's New Zealand television or overseas?
I think, the things that come, for me, The Handmaid's Tale has been a very, it's in its way of the zeitgeist. Like the first series I watched of that, I'm a hardened TV watcher. And I had nightmares from watching that.
Yeah.
And even then, it was more speculative than it feels in every season since. It's come closer and closer to you thinking, this isn't...
reality.
This season, I find, as often is the case with series that go on and on and on, there's a lot of wandering around, people escape and they go back in, escape and go back in. And, but the last episode we watched was really good, and we're thinking,
picking up the pace.
Yeah.
It's the final season, isn't it?
I believe so, yes. One of my favourites that I'm looking forward to coming back is Slow Horses. I just love that show.
Yes.
I think that is utterly delightful in every single way, even though it can be gruelingly violent. And and sometimes I have this way of watching, Sometimes I have to leave the room, but I just think Gary Oldman is just such a great character. Kebab-stained old spy.
He's fantastic, and it's just joyfully consistent, isn't it?
Yes.
Like it just delivers, within its kind of frame of what it needs to be.
Yeah. Again, the confidence, the sort of everyone is so at ease in the whole shtick of what they've set up there, and of course, Britain just has great actors to burn, doesn't it?
Yes,
there's just so
100%.
Yes. You can have a whole cast. You don't even know who they are actually, but they're really, really good. Or you've seen them somewhere. But
who's the main younger male? Loden, something Loden.
I was just trying to think who his name, and I can't. But he's really good.
Yes,
I quite like that he was kind of low key, wasn't he?
Yes, yeah. He was really fantastic in this film called Benediction a few years ago, where he played Siegfried Sassoon, the war poet. And that was my first exposure to him.
Right.
And so watching him in this role is very different, but very appealing.
And also Adolescence, of course.
Yeah, Adolescence has kind of been a very big kind of moment, I suppose. It's exposed a lot, I think, of this kind of undercurrent that's going on with young boys at the moment that maybe hasn't been observed as much, but needs to be.
Yeah, and it's been so polarising and discussed. I think most people can't deny the quality of it, but there's been some talk about the one that resonated with me that I thought as I watched too was that the victim kind of got sidelined too much.
Disappears into the kind of ether a little bit, eh?
Yeah, and there could have been, I don't think, I just think Yeah, you know how you have in some films, you feel like some characters are there to make the point rather than to be a person.
Yeah, right. The dead girl thing. Yeah.
And there was a slight element of that, and that may have been partly to do with the technique that they were using of the one long shot for each episode, weren't they?
Yeah. Well, it's been announced for a second season. Part of me wondered, is there going to be some element of that in the next season? We'll see, I suppose.
Very interesting. But the young guy, I mean, my God.
Unbelievable performance. I mean, it's a technical marvel too. You can't really go past that. But yes.
Utterly gripping, you know, just and horrifying. Like when it began and the police.
Gnarly, isn't it? The
police arrive at that house. I'm thinking, wow, that's ridiculous. They wouldn't arrive like that. And then it sort of unravels. And the mother and of course he's a genius. Graham, what's his name?
The main actor, who's
the father,
Stephen Graham.
Stephen Graham, brilliant. It's just utterly brilliant.
Oh yes, fantastic. It's been great in other things for a long time, so it's great to see him get his moment, I suppose.
And we're watching The Last of Us, this second series. Did you watch that?
Yes, I saw the shocking recent developments. We will avoid.
We won't say what it is, but yes, I'm angry.
Yes, so am I. I'm ready to watch. I'm ready to see where this goes. Another one that I actually was lucky enough to watch the season before it drops, and it's currently in the process of dropping over May, is Andor. If you watched the first season, it's a Star Wars show, so I don't know. Some people kind of aren't necessarily engaging with the Star Wars products at the moment.
I didn't, but I watched the trailer for this because it was on your list, and I thought, maybe we should go back and watch that.
Well, it's very, very different from other Star Wars product. It's from Tony Gilroy, who did Michael Clayton and a bunch of other very adult kind of very sober-minded thrillers, and this one kind of uses Star Wars as a gateway for all sorts of other things to talk about, which are very timely, like the rise of fascism and imperialism and that kind of thing. And it's all about like undercover rebellion, so there's no lightsabers, there's no like force magic or anything like that, there's barely any kind of crazy alien creatures. It's all just undercover like intrigue. Actually, in a certain sense, it's not as funny or like kind of light on its feet as something like Slow Horses, but it's those kinds of the grunts working behind the scenes kind of thing, and it builds to a very intense fever pitch towards the end. It's probably my favorite show of the year. So.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah.
No, I think I'm sold on that now, because there is a lot of wonderful television, but there isn't enough that there aren't nights when we think. And so to have something that from the trailer look that good, and from what you say, I think we'll give it a go.
Yeah, it's only 2 seasons. You do need to start by watching this Rogue One film, which is itself not great, but then it starts to look better in hindsight because the show is so good. So.
Right.
Turning to what's coming up on the big screen this month, it's a very packed month. We start off right out the gate on the 1st with Thunderbolts, which is the new kind of Marvel vehicle. It is a film that kind of brings together minor villains from other films in the series, puts them together and makes a kind of new superhero team of people who are not necessarily the most righteous, moral, upstanding characters. Now, you had a look at the trailer for this one. What did you think?
I must say I've not been. That's not a genre I've watched a lot of at all. But this one looks really good. Florence Pugh is always great, and she's so funny. And unless they've used all the funny bits in the trailer, it's very funny. And I just loved some of her lines. It's like, so none of us can fly. What are we going to do? Shoot and punch? You know?
Yeah, I think that's part of the appeal. I think is this sense that they are not the untouchable super creatures of some of these other properties. Obviously, Marvel, I think, has been on a little bit of a downward turn lately, so it'll be interesting to see if this can pull it back a little bit. But I think the quality of that cast bodes well, particularly Florence Pugh, putting herself into it in the way that she does.
And I think, too, it's got a bit of zeitgeist to it, too, in the sense of people feeling helpless and powerless. And, what can we do?
To stand up against this kind of all-powerful enemy. Yeah, absolutely. Now, another one coming up we have was at the British and Irish Film Festival last year, Lies We Tell, which arrives on the 8th. Now, this is kind of a gothic story. What was it that you respond to in this film?
Well, I've always loved those stories like Jane Eyre, where there's this orphaned, there's always an orphan sent to some house.
Yes.
Where things are not going to go well.
Yes, absolutely.
And this looks like this on steroids, and the gothic element to it gives it a very, spooky kind of undertow to it too.
Yeah.
So I just love the look of it and the tone of it. And I'm there for that kind of story. And she looks quite feisty and quite up to the task of dealing with her awful uncle.
Yeah, who's trying to marry her off. When I was talking to Fergus Grady, who runs the British and Irish Film Festival, at first I thought, oh, does this have some sort of supernatural or spiritual element? But he said it doesn't. It's actually very grounded, but it has that kind of haunted gothic suggestion, which is really interesting, I suppose.
It is, because it just keeps you attuned on a slightly different level, doesn't it?
Yeah, to the vein of Jane Eyre and all those kinds of properties. Fantastic. We also have coming up a whole bunch of very different kind of tonal swings this month. We have The Wedding Banquet, which is a really wonderful director, Andrew Ahn, who made a great film called Driveways and then a film called Fire Island. Really, really wonderful kind of under-the-radar filmmaker. So this one is a remake of the Ang Lee film. Has a great cast, including Lily Gladstone in her first role since Killers of the Flower Moon. It's this kind of queer romantic comedy. We've also got the return of the Final Destination series. Now, I, being a bit of a trashy horror fan, love the Final Destination movies, so I'm happy to see the return of Bloodlines, which is going to be the latest kind of salvo in this very, very strange, enjoyable horror series. One of the big films coming this month is The Final Reckoning, the Mission Impossible film that is rumoured to be the final go-around for Tom Cruise. Are you a fan of the Mission Impossible film?
Well, like probably many people, I love the first one. Well, I'm sure we went to the second one, but I can't even much remember it.
Yeah,
that first one was just, I loved it. The character was so great, and it was
holds
cool.
Up so well.
Yeah, and the music, and it was really good. But I believe the last one got quite critically well received, did it?
It was, but it was a bit underwhelming at the box office. I think it did itself no favors by opening a week before Barbie and Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Or 2 weeks or something like that. So
yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if the audiences come back for this one.
Yeah.
The Phoenician Scheme is the new Wes Anderson film.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Now, this one has a very enjoyable trailer. Benicio del Toro is the star, but of course, as with most Wes Anderson films, it has an enormous cast. It does look very fun. It obviously, more than ever, Wes Anderson films is kind of an acquired taste, I think, in terms of how much you can kind of go with his diorama style filmmaking. Are you a fan?
Yeah, it is interesting for me. Like, we went to see The French Dispatch. And, I've seen things in the past.
Yeah.
And, it's exactly what you're saying. I find it visually absolutely amazing and clever. And it's interesting to see actors inhabiting that diorama world. But it doesn't connect on any emotional level. So I find I go and watch it and I come out and I don't really...
Yeah, right.
I don't think about it again.
Yes.
So that, for me, I like something that makes me feel or upend something.
Yes, I've heard this quite a bit in terms of people who find the style very kind of noteworthy, but alienating. There's a little bit of a barrier there. And actually, the thing that I really enjoyed from him are the short films, the Roald Dahl short films that he made that went on Netflix recently. Those, I think, overcame that a little bit, and they had some interesting element to it underneath.
I'll have to have a look, because,
they are worth a watch.
Ken Russell was that director, British director. Years and years ago, I think it was the only person on earth who ever saw them in New Zealand, were these short things he made about Dante Gabriel Rossetti, the painter and poet, and various people, Isadora Duncan, the dancer.
Yeah, right.
They were short little films, and they were just brilliant.
Right.
And perfect.
Oh, I need to check them out.
Little biographies of these people.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's great.
I've never had anyone I can talk to them about because no one's seen them.
Oh, I better check them out.
And I love them better than, he's a great filmmaker, but then his
Like
later
with Devils
full length
or
film.
something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Wow. Oh, you should definitely check out these
Great.
Wes Anderson
I
shorts.
will.
They might put you onto the Phoenician Scheme. We also have Bring Her Back, which is the sequel from the Filippo brothers. Not a sequel, sorry. It's the follow-up to Talk to Me, which was their big kind of sudden sleeper cult horror hit. Very, very scary movie. This one also looks very, very scary. Also coming up, we have Bob Trevino Likes It, which is a comedy with John Leguizamo, the great John Leguizamo. We have Marlon Williams' Na'au e Rua, Two Worlds, that comes up on the 1st. For people who are fans of Marlon Williams, that is a must-see. It's about the recording of his first Tadeo album.
That looks great.
You're a Marlon fan?
Yes, I want to see that.
Yes, absolutely.
That stood out for me, yeah.
Clown in a Cornfield, does what it says on the tin, I believe. It's a slightly goofy horror. The thing that makes me interested in it is it's from the guys who made this very, very funny comedy horror called Tucker and Dale versus Evil, which is a very silly but very, very enjoyable horror film. Tall Tales is the visual album from Tom York, with some very, very very, very esteemed collaborators. Looks very interesting. We have Forgive Us All, which is a self-funded New Zealand zombie horror flick. That one, we have the poster here behind us.
Oh, that one, yeah.
It looks very, very...
I did look at the trailer, yeah.
It looks very interesting. It's very commendable to have put something together of the sort of scale and that kind of thing on a self-funded budget. So that's very, very impressive, worth keeping an eye out for. Hurry Up Tomorrow, another visual album. That's from The Weeknd, to do with his new album. The Salt Path is Jason Isaacs and Gillian Anderson in a kind of moving, kind of tear-jerking cancer drama. We have Lilo and Stitch, which is the live-action remake of the beloved Disney property. Listen, I'm not going to be rushing out to the cinema for that one because I'm not huge on those live action remakes, but I'm sure there'll be an audience for it. And Karate Kid Legends, which unites stars of older Karate Kid films, Jackie Chan, Ralph Macchio, in a new Karate Kid story, which should be a bit of fun as well. Lastly, the Capitol Film Club presents Orson Welles' The Trial. So Capitol Film Club runs every month. It comes along at the end of every month. I present it with my partner Amanda Jane Robinson. We show a film that hasn't been shown on New Zealand screens rarely, or if ever. We try and find kind of gems from throughout cinema history. This month we have Orson Welles' The Trial. Orson Welles, the director of Citizen Kane, popularly thought of as the greatest film ever made. His career afterwards is very, very fascinating as well. This is an adaptation of the Franz Kafka novel. Stars Anthony Perkins of Psycho fame. It is a very, very visually distinctive film. Fascinating, powerful filmmaking.
What year was that?
60 something. I should know that, but I don't. But it is well worth seeking out. It is a beautiful, beautiful black and white film, and that will be showing on the 28th of May.
Sounds good.
May is also New Zealand Music Month, and on Rialto channel we have musical notes on Rialto documentary. So we have a whole bunch of really, really fascinating titles about different kinds of music from recent times. We have Welcome to the Darkness, which is about the beloved, I don't know if they were beloved, but the rock band from the noughties who had a brief heyday then. We also have films Mozart's Sister and Mutiny in Heaven, The Birthday Party. We have a film called Ruchi Sakamoto Opus. This was at the film festival last year. It's the film by Nero Sora, who is Ruchi Sakamoto, the beloved composer's son. Sakamoto discovered that he was in the final stages of his life, and he recorded one more album, which is Opus, and this is the kind of concert film of that. It's a very, very powerful black and white film. Not a whole lot happens beyond watching this great artist compose and perform, but the way it washes over you is very, very powerful. And it's a great ode from a son to a father of one of the great kind of musical artists of his time. We also have a film called Catching Fire, the story of Anita Pallenberg, that arrives on the 8th. Now, you've had a chance to watch this film. What did you think of it?
I loved it. Mm-hmm. I didn't know quite what to expect, really. I knew a little bit, like I knew bits of everything in it, but I did not know the full stories or the way it's presented here. It's a great film. She is incredible because she was the girlfriend of Brian Jones and the Rolling Stones and then Keith Richards. And so she's surrounded, and Mick Jagger, I think they may have had a little...
Lovely.
For one thing, it was my era. She was a bit older.
Yeah, for the uninitiated, she was kind of someone who was very much in the mix of the rock scene of the 60s, 70s.
Yeah, and she was known as the Muse, And so that side of it was just fun. Like, they wrote songs probably about her. Yeah, I think they acknowledged they were about her. And Keith Richards went through a phase of being a real, I remember, fashion icon. Yeah. He was wearing these amazing kind of like androgynous outfits.
Yeah, right.
And they were all her clothes, and she was kind of styling them. So there was all that fun stuff, but it is actually quite tragic and shocking, more so than I recalled. I knew the sort of bare bones of some of the stories. And, it really pulls you up with the start, and it really makes you ask, that era was so kind of crazy and untethered. And, I still think of that era because we had the fights. It was a generation war, women couldn't do this and that. When I went to training college to be a teacher, I wasn't allowed to wear trousers of any kind, not even a trouser suit. So we wore our little miniskirts riding on the board with our little miniskirts riding up.
That's crazy.
So we felt like we were always in the fight with authority. And yet, maybe it's like in England where the aristocracy can do what they like. Rock stars were like the aristocracy, weren't they?
Right.
And the posh birds, really, or Anita Pallenberg and Marianne Faith, they were from quite aristocratic or well-moneyed backgrounds.
Families, right.
Yeah, and it was a bit like they got away with murder, but it reminded me a bit of Princess Diana, funnily enough.
Interesting.
At one point, Marlon, is it Keith Richards' son, who I think was the executive producer.
Right.
So it was obviously a kind of authorized biography, but very frank and didn't back away from the tough stuff.
Doesn't try to sugarcoat or varnish.
And he mentioned that Jagger called the Stones the org or the bus. And you get on the bus and you can't get off, and it's not really very healthy being on the bus, And so she kind of not married into it, but a bit like Diana. And, it's quite at a great cost.
Yeah.
And also made me realize that a lot of the sort of serious drug taking and, when they talk about what her personality was like and things, there was a lot of self-medication going on, I think, too.
Yeah, totally.
So it's very revealing. It's very heartbreaking at times, and quite shocking. It made me look at us in that age and what we were up to and the cost, because we all knew people who didn't, as they say in the film, didn't make it. Yeah. But she survives, and for all the occasional tear and shock, I ended watching it with a huge grin on my face. It's an amazing film.
That's wonderful.
And an amazing portrait of her. I highly recommend.
Fascinating how that era of music, particularly the Rolling Stones, I think, can almost unintentionally kind of serve as a way of examining all the things that were going on in that time.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think about that other documentary, Gimme Shelter, about the Stones, which famously ended in the murder of someone in the front row by neo-Nazis.
Yes.
It's just fascinating to watch music kind of come into contact with all that sort of stuff. And I guess having the Anita Pallenberg kind of perspective gives us a really interesting behind-the-scenes glimpse of the inner workings, I suppose.
Yeah, and the narration is, a lot of it is her unpublished memoir. And
wow.
And it's really good. So, you're also listening to this story told by her really well.
Her words.
Yeah,
fantastic. Diana Wichtel, thank you so much for being here today. We have had a wonderful conversation. I'm really, really happy that you came along. Now, your book, Unreel, A Life in Review, is on shelves here in New Zealand. It is worth picking up and having a read, and also going along to see Diana Wichtel's Unreel, A Life in Review event at the Auckland Writers' Festival, Friday, 16th of May at 11:30 a.m. with the great Finlay MacDonald, who is a old colleague of yours.
Yes, that's right. I think of it as a sort of golden age when he was editor of The Listener. It was a lot of fun. And, it's a hard business putting out a weekly mag, but I remember
definitely.
Most weeks, unless something really untoward had happened, it would be off to the printers by 4 and off to the pub.
Yeah.
Very fun times.
I'm sure you guys are going to go digging back into some old memories.
Yeah.
It will be a trip.
Bit of nostalgia as well as a bit of harsh reality, probably.
Yeah, fantastic. That's what we need. Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Mother's Day is coming up, and thanks to the good folks at Manuka Honey of New Zealand, View magazine is giving away a wonderful Mother's Day kit. So head on over to viewmag.co.nz to enter the draw for that. This has been Point of View. I am Tom Augustine. Thank you so much for joining us today. You can find my reviews over at viewmag.co.nz. We release a new one every week, and you can check back in here for a new podcast every month. Thank you so much. Ka kite.
To be honest with you, when your invitation came, I nearly threw it out.
9 people chosen under bizarre circumstances.
Voila.
For a healing retreat.
Martin!
Feels like a setup.
Did you bring me here for my money?
I brought you here to heal, David.
So what brings you here?
It's vacation.
Got it.
So what'd you like?
I urge you to forget what you think you know.
Welcome, everyone. We can begin. I invited you all here because sometimes you shouldn't deal with pain gently.
Wait, this is not a spa?
She's gonna bleach our brains, darling.
It is a cleansing of the mind to recharge, to rediscover inspiration.
Oh, God.
Are we actually supposed to drink this?
Be careful.
The temptation to live in the past is a powerful one.
Please try and keep an open mind. When you keep an open mind, it leaves doors open for terrible things.
Just play.
In dreams, I walk with you.
This is the next phase. We take you back to a core memory.
They're just as real as they were the first time round.
This group has been specifically chosen.
I've met you before.
I don't know if you remember me.
How are they all connected? Is his father who I think it is?
You'll have to trust me.
I don't. The past must be reckoned with. You came to me a broken woman. And you break everyone you try to heal.
Stop it! Sometimes the lies you let people believe are just as important as the truth.
She's manipulating us.